All right, here we go. What's up, everybody? Let's make sure we're all awake here. You know me, I got to make sure that we're awake and everything's logged on. It looks like YouTube is waking up. Rockfin, where you at? Rockfin's a little slower today. That's okay. It's not a competition. But you guys know I like it when Rockfin wins. All right, Rockfin's awake. YouTube technically won. I don't like it when Twitter always wins. I guess maybe it is a battle for second. Twitter is always the first thing that fires up. And then sometimes it's YouTube, sometimes it's Rockfin. It varies, sometimes but yeah, it's we'll go with actually YouTube. Maybe it was Rockfin. Well, whatever, it's not important. What's up, everybody? Good afternoon. Good afternoon to everyone. I was going to say good morning, but this is the later time where we do the stream of the month. Good evening to everyone in an evening time zone and to everyone in the future, Australia, New Zealand. Hope you're holding down the fort and you figured out climate change. Shout out to everyone who makes this show possible. Our friends over at Indie Left. Indie Left is a place to find all the content creators and streamers you know and love. They curate a list. They update it twice a day to find out everything they got going on. To subscribe to their Discord, check them out at independentleft.media. All right, folks. So this is the interview show of the week. And this is the second Monday of the month. And some of you know that means it is MMT Monday. This is a segment where we discuss all things MMT, or rather, actually, we discuss MMT through the lens of something going on in the world. And this is a pretty common theme. We've definitely talked about this before, but today's episode is going to be very climate change heavy, which is very appropriate considering everything that's been going on with the tornadoes in Arkansas and Tennessee and Kentucky and Illinois and all the states, Missouri, all the states affected by that. And of course, I'm rooting for you. Anyone who might be out there, I hope you are all safe and well. It's really heavy what's going on there. I used to live in Nashville, Tennessee. I've been checking in with some of my friends to make sure they're okay. So far, everyone is, but yeah, it's pretty crazy what happened out there. So helping me through this is my MMT guy. You know him. He's a regular here once a month. He hosts the Activist MMT podcast. Please welcome back to the show, Mr. Jeff Epstein. Not that one, the good one, the MMT one. What's up, Jeff?
How you doing, Ron? Very good to see you again. Hi, everybody out there. We're going to need your help today.
Happy Monday, buddy. Thanks for being here. And
Thank you.
So we start every episode with a very, very quick snapshot of MMT and what exactly it is for anyone who might be a first timer. Now, if you are a first timer, this is going to be very specific to climate change. So it's not really an introductory MMT episode by any means. But MMT, a quick snapshot, it is modern monetary theory. That's what it stands for. And it acknowledges the economic truth that we, the United States, create our own currency, and there are other currency creators. So this whole idea of how are we going to pay for it is nonsense 100% of the time. We create our own currency. And by the way, just because we create currency, that doesn't mean inflation's is going to happen all the time. Inflation happens through bad policy or disasters. It doesn't just happen automatically. And
Well
Stephanie
said.
Kelton breaks all this down. Jeff, do you have anything you want to add before we move on?
No, you're getting good at this. I'll just add my little thing of when you travel, you usually take a map with you, and you like that map to be accurate. You like it to actually represent the world in which you're traveling. That's how you know where you're going to go, how you're going to get there, and what to expect along the way. MMT is an accurate map. Mainstream neoclassical economics is a completely bogus, ridiculous, fantastical map of the economy.
It's like Wonderland, but not in a good way. It's Wonderland
well,
minus the drugs. It's just a shitty map without any of the fun stuff.
Well, yeah, that's one way of looking at it. Sure.
We'll run with that. All right. So you brought this headline to my attention, and this is so obviously so much climate change is always in the news, but it's really in the news right now because of the disasters that have happened the past couple days with the tornadoes. And we need to do something, and we need to act boldly. And here's how climate change, MMT, kind of bleeds into all this. So this is a quote from John Kerry, professional loser who couldn't even beat George W. Bush and earned his political fame by having a very beautiful speech about the Vietnam War. It was an anti-war speech, and then went on to never see a war he didn't like. So anyway, here's what this guy has to say. Here's the key points from this CNBC article. U.S. climate envoy John Kerry, we're putting the best out front, folks. He said on Wednesday, this was a little bit ago, that the private sector has the ability to find solutions to climate change by funding the trillions needed for a global transition to clean energy. Kerry said that no government in the world has enough money to solve the climate crisis or complete the energy transition. Both of these statements so far, complete bullshit. I believe the private sector has the ability to win this battle for us, Kerry said Wednesday during an interview at the Reuters Next conference. Now, Jeff,
I believe the arsonists are the only ones that can put out the fire.
So give me your synopsis first on those points there. Kind of give me your summary. I mean, I just said those first two statements are bullshit. I'd imagine you agree with that. Explain why.
The United States government creates money. It can only spend by creating money. It is not possible for it to spend except for creating money. So it doesn't have money because it creates it every time it spends. It doesn't not have money because it creates it every time it spends. So what's the point in saying no government has money to deal with this problem? I mean, in a way, narrowly, like a lawyer, narrowly, it's true. No government because they create it when they spend it. So it's just, what else is there to say? What else is there to say? Governments create money. He's pretending they can't. And that is basically saying that we don't want the government to do anything. Just step back.
Right. Well, that's exactly what he's saying. And when he makes this statement here, I believe the private sector has the ability to win this battle for us. He's basically giving a neoliberal dog whistle where he's just saying, the market's going to work it out. So what we should do is we should just let them do whatever they want because they're just going to fix it. Now, one thing I would say about this, I think that in a way, John Kerry accidentally told a little bit of truth here, but for all the wrong reasons. I do think that the private sector and just technology in general does have what it takes to start a better chapter. There's just no political will there. Now, that's not what he's saying, but when he says they have the ability, that's not actually a lie. I believe that is 100% true.
Well, I mean,
no political pressure.
The government uses the private sector to do its will. Yeah. I mean, the government doesn't. I mean, the government does some stuff directly, but generally speaking, the government commands the private sector to do what it needs to be done. So, I mean, in a sense, it's kind of correct. But the private sector organizing themselves, they have profit incentive. They have a financial incentive to not do anything about this. He's basically saying. I mean, if you think about it. For us, if we don't do anything about climate change, we're going to die. For them, if they do anything about climate change, they're going to die, where their definition of dying is no longer being in power. They're going to be one of the poor. They're going to be one of the many. And that's death to them. Actual death is death for us. So, yeah, I'll just leave it there.
Yeah, I mean, the private sector, I mean, we basically have a complete marriage between the corporation and the state. That's definitionally what we have in the United States. It is textbook fascism, and that's what we're living under. So, like you said, these folks have no incentive to really go beyond this. But if we decided, okay, we're done with fossil fuels, we're getting off of it, which at the end of the day, that's what needs to happen. All of a sudden, you would start seeing solutions really freaking quick.
Of course.
You would start seeing them so quick. And,
right.
But so really, it's like he's accidentally showing his hand when he says they have the ability. They do have the ability. But there's no political pressure. There's no political will.
Because they're the ones in charge of the government, and the government's being bribed by them. So it's never going to happen.
Exactly.
But really, it's they are going to, I'm convinced that Republican and Democrat, they are going to pump out fossil fuels as fast as they can, as hard as they can, for as long as they can. And the only way that they will stop is if we make them stop. That's it. There is no alternative. They will lose power if they don't have fossil fuels to back their military and to back their luxuries. They will lose power. They will lose their luxuries. They will lose their luxuries if they stop pumping out fossil fuels. So I really actually kind of see Kerry as the guard dog for that.
Oh,
we'll
of
take
course
care
he
of it,
is.
just step back. But they are going to pump it out as fast as they can, regardless of how much Biden says that he cares.
Oh,
He
yeah.
just, all the stuff that he is doing. So the only way we're going to get what we need is by becoming ungovernable. And
So,
actually, I kind of see of like, we're not getting student debt, we're not getting, broadband is your issue. We're not getting anything. And I feel like our fighting for any one of those things is good practice for what's coming. It's not necessarily, once we get beyond when the climate crisis really gets underway, we're not going to care about broadband. We're not even going to care necessarily about healthcare at some point. That's going to be luxuries, So,
well, it already is a luxury. Healthcare is
but
already a luxury.
but what I mean is, like, today we're fighting for healthcare. When this gets real, when this really gets real for my kids in like 20 years or whatever it is, fighting for healthcare ain't going to be nothing. They're going to be fighting for drinkable water and edible food and maybe a few hours of electricity. So that's what I mean. We still have the chance to fight these first world fights of healthcare and broadband and education and canceling student debt and so on. We have that chance now. And it's important, not just because we need those things, it's also important because it is practice of getting together and doing some organized thing and gaining some power so we can, start to branch out that power.
So, where does MMT come into all this?
MMT comes in by saying, stop listening to the economists and start listening to the scientists. That's where MMT comes in. Where Kerry says, "Oh, we don't have the money. The money. How are you going to pay for it?" That's what he's saying. He's saying, listen to the economists. The economists say we don't have the money. The economists say the government doesn't have the money. MMT says, screw the money. That's nothing. Listen to the scientists. And the scientists say, we will stop fossil fuels immediately. And we, Peter Thalmus, I think Thalmus is his last name, and NASA. Kalmus.
Yeah, he's been on this show a few times.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay. I'm dying to talk with him. So he says we have to get off of cars immediately. Electric cars are not it. So, that's a very secondary solution. We have to stop fossil fuels, which means we must get off the cars, which means we must get off of airplanes. And we have to start making the little fossil fuels that we have left, or the room to use it without killing the planet, to electricity and to heating and to, critical activities. And there's so many things going through my mind. I lost track of what I was saying. But we need to start thinking and getting our mind around what these things really mean. Because again, we have to stop using fossil fuels and we have to come to terms with what that means. Getting off of fossil fuels, we're going to lose things. We're going to lose a lot by getting off of fossil fuels.
Like what?
We're going to lose so much more if we don't get off of fossil fuels.
Well, what are we going to lose?
Cars. And the cascade of
this is where
consequences.
I totally disagree. Yeah, I totally disagree with what you're saying, but continue.
Okay, well, according to this scientist, he says we must stop using cars. Okay,
yeah,
but
I agree
he's
with
a guy
that.
that I trust,
but
and I think it's worthy
of
I
trust him too. He's been on this show 3 times. I love Peter. But here's the thing about that. When you say things like, "Oh yeah, we're just going to lose like we're going to lose cars. We're going to lose this." Yeah, we're going to lose cars as we know them now. But to entertain the idea that nothing's going to replace it, whether you realize it or not, you're actually echoing what fossil fuel enthusiasts say, just from the other side. Fossil fuel enthusiasts, their whole thesis is we need to keep doing what we're doing because as a society, we've peaked. This is as good as we'll ever get. We can never get off of fossil fuels. We'll never be this efficient. We have peaked. So we got to just keep doing what we're doing. What you're saying is yes, you're right. We have peaked, but we have to just stop anyway. And we just have to live like we're Amish. First of all, what are you basing that off of? There are 11 potential permanent fossil fuel free solutions out there that will hopefully fill our transportation needs. It's not going to happen tomorrow, but it will happen in a reasonable time frame. And if we pulled the plug and we just said fossil fuels, we're freaking done. It's over. And everybody has to start making that transition. It'll happen even faster. So, this idea that like there's not going to be anything to replace it and we're going to live primitively. Do I know 100% for sure that won't happen? No. But I think the likelihood of that being our reality is so incredibly low. I would put it at less than 1%. And why would you want to try to sell that dystopian reality? I mean, first of all, talk
I don't
about
see.
alienating people real quick.
Well, okay. I mean, this was my idea that I proposed. If I wish I had known that there was that you were very skeptical about it, I would have come in differently or
Well,
thought about it differently.
so do you think that that's going to happen? So first of all, you think again, 11 potential solutions out there. Why do you think all 11 of them will fail? Do you think all 11 of them will fail?
I don't know what the solutions are. I can't comment on it. I'm commenting on.
It ranges from solar to hydrogen to air to, I mean, and again, I can't speak fluently in all of them, man. This is people way smarter than you and I. But what I will say, I was like, the chance of all 11 of them failing. Now, where I agree with a lot of stuff that, I mean, I agree with pretty much everything Peter says in theory. And I agree that we should be living locally better. I agree that we should be eating locally better. I agree with all those things because it's just a healthier way to have a society. But this whole idea that we have peaked and we will never have transportation solutions beyond what we have now, I don't buy it for a second, man. And honestly,
I don't. I mean, I'm not exactly sure what to say. According to Peter, we need to get off of cars.
I agree. I agree. And you think nothing's going to replace it? We have peaked as a society.
I don't know how to answer that part.
Around. We'll have wagons. We'll be Amish.
No,
I mean, I'm just asking you.
I don't know the answer to that. My understanding.
Then why would you prepare as if that's the reality? I mean, I get it. Prepare for the worst and hope for the best. But when you say these types of things where it's like, we're going to lose everything, it's like.
I'm not saying we're going to lose everything. I said that we're going to not be on cars anymore. According to Peter, according to what he's saying.
You said we're going to lose a lot. I mean, maybe you didn't say everything, but you did say we're going to lose a lot. Did I miss
when we shut down the fossil fuel industry or seriously, ramp down that, then of course we're going to lose.
What are we going to lose?
We're going to lose the plastics. We're going to lose the significant amount of plastics that we use. We're going to lose.
Yeah.
We're going to lose gas-powered everything that we use gas-powered. Right. And I mean, that's.
But why would that be?
We're going to lose. Loss? We're going to be losing. How is
that a loss? I mean, that's a net positive, dude. We're gonna have a more efficient way of doing things. That's what we're gonna have.
Okay.
Or we're gonna go extinct.
Oh, well, that's a serious possibility. But food production is significantly dependent on fossil fuels at the moment as well, as I understand it.
Right, and we need to eat locally. I mean, that's something that needs to change.
But okay, I mean, I don't know how to respond to that, and I don't think I'm necessarily. I think it's kind of being mischaracterized what I'm saying. I mean, I'm not. I don't think it's deliberate, but that's not. I mean, I'm just going on the thesis of what Peter said online, that we have to stop fossil fuels for cars, and that electric cars are not that serious of an option at the moment. And are there other options? Of course there are. Of course there's stuff, but why? Why I don't understand. Why should we fight to have such? Why should we fight to be able to travel to California, to all the way across the country or the world, or to have jet skis and stuff like that? Why should we force ourselves to have that kind of a life on the same hand? Why is that something that is necessary?
Because do you really think that as a society, people would just bow down and just agree to live totally primitive, contrary to everything they know?
Well, it's kind of the point.
And honestly, Jeff, honest question, buddy. Who are you winning over with that?
I'm not talking about winning over. I'm trying to understand what the reality is going to be.
Well, guess what? I'm tired of losing for a century. So I want to win. You know what I mean, man? Like, otherwise we're just two dudes talking on the internet, which we are. But like, I don't see what's productive about being like, well, nothing's ever going to replace this, which is what the fossil fuel people say. Like we're done. We've peaked. And by the way, people have been saying this throughout human history. There was a guy who said, we're never going to be able to figure out the printing press. We're never going to be able to figure out the wheel. Planes, those will never work. Cars, we'll never be able to figure out those. We did every time. So why would we just try to sell the worst is what I'm asking you. Why like you're saying, well, why should we want to travel to California? Why shouldn't we shoot for a better society?
I'm honestly not sure what to say. I mean, the
Okay.
thesis of this idea this week was that we need to get off of cars.
I agree. We need to get off of fossil fuels. It's not car specific. We need to end fossil fuels. Where you and I disagree is that I think there will be a better replacement out there. You're kind of implying there won't be. And
I don't know if there will be. I have no idea if there will be. I'm just saying that
the chances of there will be or won't be.
I don't know. I haven't thought of this. I haven't thought of this at all. All I've been focusing on is that Peter said that we have got to stop immediately, get fossil fuels out of cars now, make them illegal now, prioritize them for electricity and for heating and for other critical whatever. But the biggest problem that we have is we are pumping out as fast as we can with cars. And that has been my only focus. As far as is that reasonable? I mean, that is what he said, and I believe it feels right. But as far as the implications of will there ever be another replacement, I don't know. I can't answer that. As far as I understand, electric cars are even fossil fuel intensive because we're not off of fossil fuels yet, and therefore it requires fossil fuels to get the lithium and to put them together and to even create and to power the charging stations and so on. Yeah, I understand that electric cars are not something a very serious solution at the moment. So getting off of cars has been in my mind, as I made clear to you this week, that has been my focus. As far as the world around that right now, I haven't really thought about it.
Well, I do think about that because we need to take drastic action. And yes, it will require habitual changes by all of us. Like, we don't disagree there. But this whole idea, again, like this whole idea that we're going to go to this primitive way of living and we're going to have to, go backwards. First of all, it would be the first time in human history that's ever happened. There's a first time for everything. So who knows? Maybe it'll happen. But I doubt it. Again, 11 potential replacements.
Okay, well, is there a point of doing that? What we were planning on doing then? I mean, that was the focus of what I was planning on. That seems to be contradicting of what you're saying that this is. There's something inappropriate about approaching it.
There's not anything inappropriate about it. I just don't agree with you. I didn't know when we pick topics I have to agree with you 100%.
No. I don't want
that
to
on my show.
No, I'm just surprised. I'm just surprised, and I'm not sure how to react. Of course we don't have to agree that there's nothing that's fine. But the entire thing is, are you okay moving forward with this thought experiment on the assumption that I'm
having the thought experiment?
Okay.
You saying we have to get off of fossil fuels. I have not disagreed with that once. I agree with that 110%.
Okay.
Where I disagree, if you're implying that we're all just going to live like we're Amish after that, I don't think that's the way it's going to be. Okay, I highly doubt that. I think there is less than a 1% chance that would ever happen. And even if it does, why would we plan for the absolute worst? Why would we be like, oh, we've peaked as a society, so get the wagon and buggy and let's all read by candlelight? It's just not going to happen, Jeff.
Okay.
Nor should it.
My idea was to do the cascade of consequences of what it would mean to get off cars. For example, of like Walmart is 100% dependent on fossil fuels because that is something you must drive to, and obviously all the products must go to. McDonald's and even New Jersey is zoned in such a way that they have major residential zones and they have industrial zones. There's not much mixture. In Pennsylvania, there's a lot of mixture. So that will really impact New Jersey. So what would it mean to get off cars? That is what I was.
It means we'd have to finally take an extensive rail seriously. And it means that a lot of these proposals, and again, I mean, I'm not fluent in all these solutions either. I've read up on some of them. A lot of it goes over my head, man. But what I do know is that not all of them are completely finished yet. A lot of them are still in development. So I agree with Peter, and we've talked about this on the show. I agree. No pun intended. Pull the freaking plug, force it, be like, we're done. Because right now, kind of like what we talked about, the political will isn't there. I mean, there's already airlines that are flying planes without fossil fuels, but right now it's just a nice marketing campaign. They get to pat themselves on the back. If you actually say, no, 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 we're freaking done. We're done. It's over. You don't get to sell flights anymore because we're done with fossil fuels. How
Okay.
quick do you think they'll all be flying?
Okay. Well, hopefully that's the case. Hopefully that's the case.
I know,
Um,
man. And again, we don't know for sure, but I mean, hell, dude, people a heck of a lot smarter than you and I. This is their lives' work. And I'd like to think that out of all the 11, some of them are going to come to fruition. It's happened before.
okay. Okay. Well, my idea was to what would it mean to get off of cars? And I was thinking of there would be hopefully alternatives will come up, but at first we just need to get off cars at least, or at least think about it. So the idea of going to large local schools, the ideas of traveling 30, 45 minutes an hour to work, these things, and to bring in food from China and do all these things. Basically, everything needs to get more local.
I agree with
Everything,
that. I agree with
everything
that.
needs to get more. All right, so let's go with that. What would that mean to
We
get more
always talk
local?
about what a sexy society that would be, Jeff. Would you?
For,
I think, Jeffrey, eliminate the word loss from your vocabulary because those are not losses, my friend. Those are wins. We used to live that way so much better. Have you ever read Bowling Alone by Robert Putnam?
no.
Read that book, dude. You'll love it. But it talks about how we used to be more communal and we're not anymore. And I agree with you 100% that we have to go back to that. I mean, dude, I
Okay, so
geek out.
then let's go with that because we agree with that, which is essentially kind of where I was going with this.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
What does it mean to get off cars? It means to get local. We
Yeah,
can talk
totally.
about the cars and alternatives and stuff, which I just don't know to be able to respond to, and wasn't prepared regarding that. But regarding local, we totally agree with. So let's go with that
Absolutely.
because that's kind of compatible with both of our views. So getting off of cars, I was talking with a teacher at a school that I work, and she was like, well, what would that mean if we got off cars? We'd have to be more local. That means that teacher would not be, there wouldn't be large central schools anymore. There would be teachers teaching in neighborhoods, small, very small schools, possibly in homes. They would be teaching at homes. There would be gardens in the backyard, which I feel like you've kind of mentioned. There would be gardens in people's backyard. There would be probably communal dinners. There would be communal, just everything would change. But that would start affecting, like, if there were no cars, then I start thinking of like mechanics and gas stations and the Walmarts and the McDonald's. And
Oh, you think about the Walmarts, Jeff? You're worried about the Walmarts? Guess what? I'm
I
not
wouldn't call
worried
it
about the
worry.
Walmarts. I'm
I
not
wouldn't
worried
call it
about them.
worry. I'm
Fuck them.
curious. I'm curious what's going to happen. I'm curious what's going to happen. And how do we employ all the people that currently work there?
I
How do
know. And
we
well, let's go
mechanics,
through
like
it.
mechanics, for example, mechanics have a very useful skill.
Yes, they do.
How do we reshape that skill so that they can help this new non-car society? Where on the other hand, like gas station attendants don't have necessarily a very marketable skill. I don't, that comes out wrong, but compared to mechanics, a very specialized skill. So what do we do with all these people?
Well, first of all, gas station attendants are only in like what, 2 states, right? Isn't it? Or do you just mean like any
people that work at
worker?
gas stations.
Okay, I thought you meant specifically the people who pump it.
Well, I
Because
mean, they're part of it.
that's only in what, Jersey and Oregon. But I think the short answer to your question is, again, like, we're not going to have no, we should be living locally because it's an opportunity for a better quality life and it is more efficient. And when we eat local, we are cutting out. I mean, at the end of the day, the biggest polluters are what? And we've talked about this before: war, factory farming. Those are the big ones.
Really? Factory farming? Okay.
Factory farming's one of the big ones. War is one of the big ones. And then these companies that are just destroying the planet, treating it as their playground, the Amazons of the
Mhm.
world, the Walmarts of the world.
Mhm.
In a more localized society, we would cut back a lot of that demand. We would slice into it, which is a good thing, which is a world I want to see, which is a world you want to see. And it'd be a better world. I mean, there's really something to be said. I mean, a walkable life is just so much more pleasant and rewarding. I mean, I'm one of those guys, whenever I move somewhere, I check the walk score. It's one of the first things I do. Knowing where my produce comes from
Walk
is
score? Is it something like on a map that you have there?
so when you use like I mean that they're a pretty despicable company, but you know, it's kind of the reality of the world we're living in, something like Zillow.com or something like if you're searching for an apartment, usually they have a thing and it's called a walk score, and it's
Oh,
usually on a 0 to 100 scale.
okay.
And you know, usually if you're below like 60, you ain't walking anywhere.
Hmm. Okay. That
Uh
makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, people like me kind of geek out about it, but like, so my point is that's just such a better way to live. So I'm with you 100% that I would love to see a society go back, quote unquote, in that way. Now, I wouldn't describe that as a loss. I would describe that as a huge freaking win.
I think it
You
would
know,
be a beautiful
when
thing,
you
but we would lose cars if we, if that's our scenario, that we would lose cars.
we'd have a better life beyond cars. That's what would
I
happen. That is
agree
not a
totally.
loss, my friend.
I agree that
That is
living
not.
locally would be amazing, but for society, it would be a shocking thing if we, and especially if we don't talk about it. People depend on cars. I don't think everyone would agree with us that local is better, and they depend on their cars. We have a car culture, and it would be a shock to a lot of people. And that's why I feel like the conversation is so important, because it will be a complete shock, and everyone will be scrambling when at the rate that we're going. So it's like, I just feel like we need to understand the depth of the problem to understand that it is important to do this. And then so we can start understanding of this cascade of consequences in order to start wrapping our minds around what society will and could become. Because at the moment, it's just, we're going to get off fossil fuels whether we like it or not.
Yeah.
The only questions are when, and will it be controlled or will it not be controlled? And I envisioned this conversation of trying to start the process of it, thinking of a controlled transition. So just to start
Totally.
envisioning. Yeah. So, I mean, that's the general idea.
It's very hard for people, and you and I are guilty of this too, Jeff. We're not immune, but it's very hard for people to imagine something they've never experienced and to imagine something that we don't have. It's very hard, especially in the United States of America. It's very hard for people to imagine an extensive rail system because we don't have it. But could we have it? Of course we could. We have the frickin' roads.
Of
We
course.
had it more extensively in the past.
Right.
Of course we could have it.
How
But
much
it's
don't we
hard to
have
imagine
because we are so invested in cars? How much don't we have?
because we're invested in cars and it's hard for us to imagine another way of life. But when you really kind of look at the potential that we do have, and I'm not some like utopian guy here. Like I'm not calling for utopia, but I just say I think where I'm pushing back against some of the stuff you're saying, I don't consider something a loss when it's a status quo that needs to be abolished. We have a
Yeah,
status quo that is totally in the toilet, and like you said, your kids and my kids, should I choose to have them, and everyone's kids, they're gonna have a hellscape of a reality if we don't act and we don't act boldly. We all know this.
yeah,
So,
absolutely.
but this idea that like, where I think like you and I feel the same, and maybe it's just sort of like our framing is a little different, is that I see an opportunity. I'm not saying that opportunity is going to be without any hardships whatsoever. Of course it won't be. I'm not going to say that, maybe there will be a transition period where we are kind of like in sort of this change where we can't do things we were accustomed to. But the idea that that will be the permanent new way of living, I don't think that's going to be the case for 1 second. Are we going to expand as a global village? Absolutely. That's not necessarily a bad thing. No one should be in an office unless they absolutely have to be. And guess who has to be? Pretty much freaking nobody.
We're
Not
gonna.
every job can be done remotely, but the ones that can certainly should be. And I agree, we need to rethink schooling. We need to reimagine all that stuff. I'm not saying it should all take place online. I think there's something really important you get in the physical classroom, but I'm with you. More neighborhood schools, making it more smaller, making it more neighborhood driven. We lost sight of all that and we consolidated and consolidated and consolidated. And now it's backfiring. You know why? Because not as many people are breeding and schools are closing. It's time to rethink things. I'm with you 100% there.
I think Chromebooks are an interesting case, kind of a case study, kind of proving your point, which is, the pandemic and, soon enough climate change without having cars potentially means that we can't go to these large centralized schools. So how do we deal with that currently? We simulate going to this large school through a Chromebook. We simulate being in that large school virtually. But at what point are we on this virtual window into a centralized school? At what point does that become, this is ridiculous? Instead of pretending that we're in a centralized school, let's start being where I actually am with all these kids at home and start facilitating these kids at home in person and get teachers to them as opposed to bring students virtually to these teachers a half hour, 45 minutes
Why
away.
not just have smaller facilities? Why not have smaller facilities for kids to go to? I mean, teachers don't need to go to their homes.
We're agreeing. Well, I don't mean homes. I just mean local. I just mean stop this large centralized stuff and to have the local stuff that you're talking about. I just mean to say the Chromebooks are the way to make those kids and all of these, whatever, during the pandemic, be in that major hub of a school, that large school 45 minutes away or whatever it is. And instead, at some point, if you're doing that more than being in person, then instead we should be having what you're saying, local schools, take the teachers to where they are and have smaller groups there.
We spend so much of our freaking lives in transit. And it sucks, dude.
It's horrible.
I mean, it sucks. No one likes it. And I'm a guy right now where a lot of what I do is done remote. So I'm luckier in that sense than a lot of people, and I acknowledge that. But I mean, I recognize the lifestyle and I just see how truly broken and counterproductive it has become. And if there's some silver linings from the pandemic we're still going through, that's one of them, that we realize, like, we don't need all these cars on the freaking road. We don't need, I mean, yeah, like there's a lot of jobs out there. They cannot be done remote. They need to be done in person. And I totally get that. But again, the ones that don't have to be, and this is why we'd be better off. I mean, you talk about solutions, you talk about getting off of fossil fuels. That's how things like municipal broadband are connected to all this. And that's how MMT is connected to all this, because when it comes to something like municipal broadband, something we can afford many times over, nobody should ever ask the question or have the, bullshit excuse of we can't afford this. Yes, we can. Whether it's a town of 20 or a major metropolitan city, we can afford it many times over.
And to whatever happens, I think it's safe to say that we're going to be traveling less. However, there could be alternatives and whatever, but I think it's safe to say that we will be traveling less and less far. And these tools, broadband and Chromebooks and Zoom and even telephones and just email and stuff, that's the stuff that's going to allow us to still stay in touch with those people that we would not necessarily be able to actually see in person using, planes and cars and such.
Oh, I agree. I mean, again, I think that, yeah, I guess it's a matter of degree. I think it is totally right on to encourage people to reduce their carbon footprint to the best of their ability. Abso-freaking-lutely. And yeah, I mean, I know, like, flying less. I mean, a lot of, and Peter and I have discussed this on this show, and he shared a statistic once, and I forget all the details about it, but basically a lot of the flight traffic from consumers, from just regular consumers buying tickets, whatever, a large majority of it is from really, really rich people who are doing, most of the flying, like something like
Hmm.
80-90% of the flying. And
Yeah.
some of them are literally, they're doing stuff where they're getting on a plane for the damn hell of it, where it's like their credit card company was like, oh, you'll get some points if you just go somewhere for no freaking reason this weekend. And they do it.
Hmm.
And that's disgusting.
Hmm.
Now, when you take that to an extreme, though, and I'm not saying this is what you're doing, we're just having a conversation. When you take it to the extreme where you're wagging your finger at somebody who maybe got on a plane because they had a family member die, maybe got on a plane because it's necessary for their job, maybe got on a plane because a family member's sick, whatever, that's a bit counterproductive. That's a bit extreme. And that, in my opinion, is the environmental equivalent of bending over to pick up pennies when there's $100 bills hitting you in the face. And we need to be focused on those $100 bills. I'm not saying that's what you're doing right now. I'm just having the conversation, but that's kind of the way I see it.
Okay. I think it's, well, no, it is. There's some inequality report that was released. I haven't read it, but what I know is that the top 10% of humanity, the richest top 10% are spewing out orders of magnitude more CO2 than the
Right.
rest of us. So
Oh,
if we
yeah.
stopped them from doing that, then we would have much more time to start having these conversations of
Hmm.
to work out these kinks and to be able to deal with this cascade of consequences. It feels like we are in a rush. It feels like a real rush. It is a rush. It is a real rush because they're pumping out fossil fuels as hard and as fast as they can, and they won't stop until we make them stop. So,
And that's the place where it gets very frustrating because there is the necessity of a top bottom solution here. And when you look at things like MMT, that really shows you that yes, we can. We just have to have the political will. If Joe Biden or whoever else said, okay, 2025, we're freaking done. And because we create our currency, here's the money we need for new environmental solutions when it comes to agriculture, environmental solutions when it comes to transportation, all the above. And you're saying, well, what about the people who are working in our Walmarts? What about the people who are working in our McDonald's? What about the people who are working? This is going to come with all kinds of jobs. And
job
we don't need to worry
guarantee.
about job
Job
guarantee, federal job
guarantee.
guarantee, which again, so it's like the connections are all there. And this does go back to theories like MMT, where it's like whenever John Kerry gets up there, professional loser extraordinaire, John
Who
frickin' Kerry.
President, not Trump, chose to appoint to this.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And whenever that guy gets up there, oh, no country could have, which first of all, that's another way to really direct people or make people not look at what other countries are doing because the United
Yeah,
States
he's not
is,
just propaganding us, he's propagandizing the entire planet. Right.
and he doesn't want us to pay attention to some of, and I'm not saying that any country's, like flawless. Of course they're not. But you look at what they're doing in places like Norway, Denmark, China. Look at what China did with a high-speed rail within the past 12 years. They started talking about it in 2008. Look at where they're at now in 2021 because they had the political will to do it, because they put the resources into it. I'm not saying the Chinese government is perfect. I'm not saying that at all. But I am saying they had a task. And when it comes to environmental tasks, they are doing. The United States is, at best, talking.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Two things, if I may. One, political will. The only way we get political will is to make them have the will. This is not. I think we're in agreement. They ain't going to choose this. There is no political will because they profit from not doing it. So the
Yeah.
political will comes down to us.
They'll
We need to
choose
make
it
them
when
do
you
it.
strip their profit motive. That
When
is
we
the
become
sad reality.
when we become ungovernable, they do it. They'll
Or
do it.
we force policy that strips away their profit motive.
Right.
I mean, again, if somehow, and again, we're talking top down, which sucks, but if somehow, we were able to get a finish line where where it was just like, you are done, things would change pretty quick. I mean, that's the way a revolution works, especially even when it comes to like a technological revolution. It's very, very slow until all of a sudden it's not. Think about the internet. For how long was the internet just this kind of, obscure network only a couple people knew about? Maybe if you were in the right university, you could kind of experience it and you were like, whoa, what's this? Then all of a sudden the World Wide Web happened. Then all of a sudden you knew like 5 or 10 people in your neighborhood who had it. Then really quick, everyone freaking had it. You and I lived through this, Jeff. We know how fast it goes.
Look at what we're on right now.
Look at what we're on right now. And if we had the political willpower where the profit motive was stripped out, or as you said, we straight up become ungovernable to the point where they don't have a choice but to do this. Because no politicians in either of our lifetimes have ever done anything good unless they were scared of losing their job. It's never happened.
But the entire time they say how much they want to do stuff that's good.
Well, of course. Yeah, they're all bullshitters. But,
right.
When they are genuinely scared of losing their job, they will do some things. And there are some minor things, and they're drops in the bucket, and I acknowledge that. But there are some minor things out there where even the most despicable entities amongst us are realizing that this way of doing things is over. It's freaking over. There's Wall Street companies. Again, they are the most despicable players on the world stage. They are capitalists to the nth degree. They are terrible. But even they are diverting away from fossil fuels because they know the profits aren't going to be there. They know that the car companies, they're not making fossil fuel powered cars. And I agree that electric cars still have a long way to go. I wouldn't write them off entirely because I think there's a lot of potential for more efficient batteries. But, they're getting away from this stuff. Planes, again, I think it was Delta. Don't quote me on that. But one of the airlines, it made news. They were like, we just flew a plane without any fossil fuels. Just a marketing thing that makes them look nice. They can pat themselves on the back. They probably get a tax write-off. But
it's probably made of foam and 3 feet long.
No. I mean,
I don't know. I have no idea.
Real plane. But you pull the freaking plug on these people, dude. It's going to go real quick. I think to your point, because I'm not trying to sound like Kumbaya. We're all going to be totally fine over here. I'm not implying that there's not going to be any hardship. To your point, there may be a reality where, maybe the average person can't afford to get on a plane for a bit. But that's not going to be the way we live our rest of our lives. I just don't think that's ever going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't have to be. There's no reason for it to be that way.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think that's fair. Yeah, I mean, whatever happens, something big is going to be happening. Something enormous is going to be happening, and it's just, I don't think any of us can really understand what that is because no one's talking about it because I won't dare watch MSNBC, but I can't imagine they're freaking out about the climate crisis. I just feel like we're so far off from, as not me and you, but we are so far off from even talking about that climate change is urgent. And yet we see these surveys of there was some survey I saw on Twitter about, kids are anxious. I mean, anxious and fearful of, and of course, and why shouldn't they be? And it's like, we're not directing all of this anxiety. And if we don't have this conversation of what these consequences are going to be, whatever the specific things are going to happen, whatever it is going to have a cascade of consequences. And I don't think that anyone is really having those conversations. I mean, this is kind of the beginning of that conversation, but it's just like, we're having that conversation. We're not exactly qualified to have that conversation, which is fine. It's like nobody else is having it.
Yeah.
So
why not? Why not?
And I mean, we're getting some good comments too. It's going by a little fast, but
yeah. No, I agree with you, and I think that I guess the one thing that you and I keep coming back to, I wouldn't forget the opportunity component here. It's not just consequences. It's not just things we're losing. It's also things we're gaining, and it's also
not necessarily a negative thing.
I understand that, but I mean, it's not. It doesn't have the positive ring that opportunity has. as far as verbiage goes. Would you agree with that?
Okay, I'll give that.
So, I mean, I think that's an important thing to not lose sight of, because there's all of the reasons in the world why we can do better than how we're doing now. There's all the reasons in the world why we can. I mean, look, here's a micro example. And I think this is kind of like a sort of fun snapshot way to look at what we're talking about from like through like a micro lens. So in my world, we'll say like the writing world, there's a good chance, and I hope this is the case, that writers' rooms will be over Zoom forever. I hope that's the case. There's no reason why it shouldn't be. Now, some people who have been writers in Hollywood for a long time, they don't want that to be the case because they really like, I mean, first of all, there is something special about being in that room together. I get it. But there's also something special about being able to collaborate with people all over the world online over Zoom and to create something, create an amazing script or series or whatever it is you're writing. So, and they also kind of got used to living a certain way where, you know, you might have an assistant who will go and get you whatever you want for lunch and it's on the network's dime, et cetera, et cetera. And I get that. I bet that's pretty nice. But you know what else is also pretty freaking nice? Not having to commute to frickin' Hollywood 5 days a week to go and be creative, to be able to maybe live in a different place where you got more space. Maybe, you know, maybe you don't want to live in the Valley or Hollywood. You want to live in somewhere like San Pedro where I live. Well, you can go do that because all your writing's going to be over Zoom anyway. So you can live in a neighborhood that you really want to live in, and you can enjoy. Maybe you like being closer to the mountains or closer to the beach. I know this is a very micro LA specific example, but you see the theme at what I'm getting at here. And
I actually think that you're bringing up an interesting point, or at least it's making me think of an interesting point of a major tool is dividing the people up. The major tool of controlling people is to divide them up over pointless things, color of skin and gender and just anything, political stripe, whatever. And yet you're kind of talking about the opposite of, and we're kind of talking like a large school that everybody travels to, or a job that everybody travels to, or it goes to for in-person writing rooms. I think that's what you call them.
Yeah.
And we're talking about, no, we want to be decentralized. So in a sense, the rich, and the rich, just to say something simple, the rich want us to be consolidated in a way because they can control us better in a way. But at the same time, they want to divide us up.
Because they're benefiting from the status quo that exists. I don't know if it's so much controlling us as much as it is they benefit from the status quo. Why do you think that we see all these articles in the Wall Street Journal about how when you take people out of the office, they're not as productive? By the way, the opposite is true. We all know this, but they parrot that stuff. Why do they parrot that stuff? Well, because some of their advertisers and probably some of the people on their staff own those freaking office buildings and they want them occupied. So yes, the people who are profiting most from the status quo, the people who are, the CEOs of the fossil fuel companies, the oil executives, all those people, of course they want you commuting however many miles a week. They don't want that to change. Of course they want you in those cars. Of course they want you going to those schools. They want all that stuff because they benefit from this status quo. And here we have the resources to build a better status quo. Is it going to be perfect? Of course not. There's no such thing. Will it be without its transitionary hardships? Probably not. They will exist. But do we have all of the pieces and all of the tools, especially when it comes to currency? Because how you're going to pay for it is a bullshit argument, and we know this. Do we have the tools to build a better society? Yes, we do.
That was dangerously close to Obama.
We can. Yes, we can. Yes, we can. Jeff, grab a clipboard. Grab a clipboard, Jeff.
And be sure to vote.
Don't complain.
Vote like your life depends on
Jeff, do you want a beer? I have a beer for you. I like the sticker on your glasses. When'd you do that? You want a beer? Don't grab a clipboard, Jeff. Vote. Don't tweet me things. Vote. You get the government you voted for, Jeff.
Okay.
Are you hoping?
I'm trying my best.
You need more hope.
Jeff,
You're not hoping
I'm
hard enough.
overflowing with hope. I'm overflowing.
Go to the library in Chicago. I displaced a bunch of poor people. Hope.
All right, man. Well,
Jeff, where can people go to learn more about you? Where can they learn more about your hope? Plug your hope, Jeff.
Plug my hope. My hope is located at Activist MMT on Twitter and Activist MMT spelled like that on Facebook. You could also go to my resources at activistmmt.org. Tons of really good resources. And my 100th episode of my podcast, which contained this gentleman.
Congratulations, Jeff. Got 100 episodes.
Just released 101. And yeah, so I got like 5 others already waiting for my patrons and stuff. So yeah, please become my patron, patreon.com/activistmmt. And this was a very interesting conversation, totally different than I was expecting, but that's okay.
Okay, well, I hope that's a good thing.
No, it turned out to be a good conversation. It was
Grab a clipboard, Jeff.
honestly not what I expected,
What
but it turned out to be a very interesting conversation.
I mean, you guys
dive into the
if you said like that's not what I expected, what did you expect?
The car, just focusing exclusively on the car thing.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I'm saying fuck them. I just think something better is going to be there. I don't think it's going to be, I guess we're just fucking get the wagon in the buggy. I mean, we already talked about this. I just think there's going to be a better, you're talking to a guy who lived in a car at one point, who spent 45 weeks a year traveling around doing comedy. I know what it's like being in a car. And I'm looking forward to that better tomorrow where we have a better way of doing things. And, anyway, yeah, you get the idea.
It turned out good.
Check out Activist MMT. Let me do a couple. Well, Jeff, thank you so much for being here, dude. We'll be back. I guess this is our last one for the year, isn't it?
Today's December.
We do this once a month. And it's December.
Yep, January 13th, I believe it is, or something like that.
Whatever the second Monday
Whatever it is.
Whatever the second Monday is at 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific. Jeff will be back with another topic and discussing it through the lens of MMT. And in the meantime, check out Activist MMT. Check out those resources. Check out some of Jeff's interviews. I'm one of them, and he's interviewed a bunch of brilliant, brilliant people. So you got to check that out. And Jeff, thank you so much for being here, man. Have a wonderful holiday season.
Thanks, Ron. Thanks, everybody. Man. See you.
Peace. All right, let me go to the chat. Should I talk with Mike Obama for the chat? All right, I'm going to stop. Edwin, what's up, buddy? Are you doing a Patron stream this week? Of course I am. Why would I be? I did one. So last week's Patron stream happened on Saturday instead of Sunday. And the reason for that was, well, there were a couple reasons. One was kind of a personal family thing I had to do that kind of, so part of it was personal, and part of it was also with everything that was going on with Assange. I kind of wanted to get a clip of the Assange thing, so I wanted to do it as soon as possible. So that's why the Patron stream happened Saturday instead of Sunday. Typically, Patron/Rockfin Premium streams happen on Sundays, and that'll likely be the case this week. It'll probably happen on Sunday. I haven't released the schedule yet, but that stream goes out to everybody. Everybody gets to watch it initially, and then the replay is only available for patrons and Rockfin Premium members. To become a patron or Rockfin Premium member, we'll go to patreon.com/Ron Placone. For a Give What You Can level, you get all kinds of exclusive perks. You get stand-up clips not available anywhere else. You can get my album in its entirety, my first album. You can just download it. You can get your own theme song. I got a lot of holiday theme songs coming up. Grab yours today. And that's all for a Give What You Can level. Even $1 a month goes a long way. Seriously. You might be thinking, Ron, I can spare $1 a month, but I don't know. You should do it. $1 a month goes. Seriously, I want to build a community with my Patreon. That's my goal with it. I drop all of my content on Patreon. So no matter what level you can give, whether it's $1, whether it's $2, whether it's $3, whether it's $1 million, everything's awesome. And everyone gets all the same perks. There are no tiers, TIERS, on my Patreon. Everyone gets the same stuff, no matter what level you give at. Because if you want to patronize what I do, I want you to be able to and to be part of the community, regardless of how much you can give. So no matter what amount it is, $1, $2, $3, $4, $5, $6, $7, $8, $9, $10, $11, $12, $13, $14, $15, $16, $17, $18, $19, $20, $21, $22, $23, $24, $25, $26, $27, $28, $29, $30, $31, $32, $33, $34, $35, $36, $37, $38, $39, $40, $41, $42, $43, $44, $45, $46, $47, $48, $49, $50, $51, $52, $53, $54, $55, $56, $57, $58, $59, $60, $61, $62, $63, $64, $65, $66, $67, $68, $69, $70, $71, $72, $73, $74, $75, $76, $77, $78, $79, $80, $81, $82, $83, $84, $85, $86, $87, $88, $89, $90, $91, $92, $93, $94, $95, $96, $97, $98, $99, $100, $101, $102, $103, $104, $105, $106, $107, $108, $109, $110, $111, $112, $113, $ please. Patreon.com/Ron. Please do consider it. Richard Talk, what's up? Hi, Ron. Greetings from Shelly and Rich. All the best, man. I like your frame of mind with Jeff. We need to fight, and it's time to think and not just say, I don't know. Kudos, Ron. Thank you so much for that, Richard. And greetings to you and Shelly in the UK. And I can't wait to see you on the road in the UK. I will be there. Hopefully 2023, I'll be there. And yeah, Edwin, totally. Next week, I will be, there will definitely be a Patreon stream next week. And sorry if there was any confusion for last week, but we were a day early. Check out Jeff's stuff. We do our MMT segment once a month on Mondays. It's a fun time, very climate change heavy today, but it's got to be because obviously the connections are there. They're trying to make it out like we can't afford the bold action needed for climate change. Guess what? We can. We can. The resources are there. The people power are there. The finances are there. The technology's there. We just need the frickin' will. We need the will. All right, guys, thanks so much for being here. And in the meantime, Lucy's asleep on her cat tree, and it's freaking adorable. It just melted my heart a little bit. But Lucy, she says meow, and I say peace, love, and a general strike. And climate action now, and free Assange. I'm starting to say a lot of things. Oh, and tour dates. I got them. Grab your tickets now. Don't wait. Pittsburgh, Toronto, Ottawa, Montreal, Burlington, Vermont, Portland, Maine, Boston, Mass, New York City, baby. Grab your tickets for April. Don't wait. RonPlacone.com. I'll see you guys on Thursday for the headline show. And in the meantime, peace, love, a general strike, free Assange, climate action now, end the wars. And meow. All right. Peace.